be done. I'm hoping in the next couple weeks.
Started.
Right, yeah, so. But, I mean, I've gotten drafts of every chapter except for the final chapter to Rich and gotten feedback, so I mean, like, every chapter's drafted now, so that's progress.
Yes.
There's one like a third of it.
Really?
Maybe I'll just take it back to the office. Continue doing
I think so. I mean, that's a lot of other like
I didn't know that.
but anyway, so then I ordered one from Amazon, and now I'm like, it's like expensive. Sign for it. So I asked them, is that a problem? And they said, no, it shouldn't be. But, yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. So I'm just like, I mean, I've gotten in
Tuesday, Thursday.
It is up, it is great.
but yeah,
I
so.
think it was up there New Year's Eve and New Year's Day and then the week after. And snow was still on the outside and non-snow was on the inside.
So the thing
No critters rolling around on the inside.
How long have you been with it?
We're not in it, like, I keep thinking about that. So I tested, we'll see in late spring, like, not early.
It's plenty.
Right,
The critters might not be so desperate.
right, yeah. It's starting to get into desperate.
I'm making do.
Yeah.
Right, so we'll
That's
see.
good. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'd love
That's
to.
really cute.
Yeah.
But still, not ideal. Not ideal.
You're just not settled.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait till I get the stove.
Yeah, I'm gonna try this thing.
I know. So airport doesn't go through this door, the stove is open and then
Temporary fire.
Right.
I did upgrade my personal storage.
Oh, okay.
Good.
That's what you're
I
doing.
think I upgraded my personal storage to 100 gigabytes, which is still not massive. Or it's like, I think it was $12.99 or like only $59 or something.
That's not bad. That would be way more expensive.
Okay. But because eventually you want to have Google Suite
Right.
Yeah, I just got a message from a student who already couldn't see the discussion. I haven't published it. Oops. Was the last bit I forgot to do.
Forget to publish stuff all the time.
Yeah. So
I like Application Web and
the default
seems
is
like
create
a
something or you think it's
I thought maybe you were going to tell us, but I was like, what about here? And she was like,
All right, we'll get going and turn off music. All right, one quick announcement before we start. Again, we have these active teaching and using active learning in the classroom. Blended learning toolkits available. You can take them. These are last year's edition, so huge closeout sale on the old ones. They're free for the taking. If you find them useful, this is a fellowship that is offered almost every year, if not every year. So look for that, and you'll get information on it on blendedtoolkit.com or blendedtoolkit.wisc.edu. But available and good stuff available there. Welcome to the Active Teaching Lab. My name is John Martin. I work for DoIT Academic Technology. I'm part of the Teaching Academy and We try to get people to come every week and talk about their experiences using technology to teach. Sometimes teach better, sometimes it's about the frustrations of using technology to teach. That's okay. We problem solve, we work through some things. And hopefully you leave having some questions answered that you had when you came in. Which gets us to our first part of the hour. And that is, what we do is we want to be responsive to your needs. So we're going to go around the room and have you tell us who you are and why you came here. But we're going to do it a little bit differently this time. We're going to do it like an online discussion. So you have to say something. It should be 250 characters about, give or take, no more than 500 characters. And then 2 more responses to other people's things. So if we can just make that all happen, we'll have a very effective face-to-face communication based on online practices. All right? So who would like to start? Oh, I'm going to point out a few more things. Actually, on the activity sheet in this top box here, you can see the top box here, there is a link you can enroll in to get to the Canvas page. The reason you'd want to get to the Canvas page is because in the Canvas page we have the worksheet, the activity sheet, embedded there, and there's a link to it as well, right here above it. And it's open to anyone to add to. So at the very bottom of it, you can see that there's a lot of information. You can add your own questions and your own resources. So if you have a particularly cool resource that you would like to share on online discussions, please share it with us so that our next lab can be even better. The other thing, of course, the paper sheets, the links don't work on the paper sheets, but they do work on the digital sheet, so that's nice. All right. So, you're going to tell me why you're here, and I'm going to write some questions down so that we can make sure that we try to respond to those questions today, and that way you'll leave happy, right? Who would like to start? Who are you and why you're here?
I'll start.
All right, Karen.
Hi everyone, I'm Karen Spader. I work at DCS and work with someone else in the room, teach online at UW. Anyway, I have a lot of experience with online teaching, online discussions. Do you want me to give you a question too?
If you have a question you'd like to see us address today, yes.
What are some strategies for making online discussions organic?
Organic. Ooh. Certified. Okay, great. Charles, would you like to follow?
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Charles. I'm in the Department of French and Italian, and I'm currently teaching an online course this semester, so it's not something that I've ever done before. So I'm also curious about how to make online discussions not only effective for student learning, but also a little bit more personable, because it seems like in an online class, it's just kind of a sea of random people. It's very sort of depersonalized. So.
All right, I like personable. Human. Good. Sarah?
Yep, I'm in the Department of French and Italian also. I'm not teaching anything right now, but I am very interested in online or like blended things, and discussions are definitely interesting to me because of the lack of like face-to-face, you know, like reconceptualizing like interpersonal relationships through a discussion board. So I just have I'm just here to glean general information about that.
In some ways, that's, you talked about relationships, and so I think that kind of builds off of Charles' question about how do we make them personable, how do we make them relationships instead of sort of this anonymous online space. I should note none of you have thus far responded to 2 other posts that people have given us. I'm afraid, well, if there's time, and we're going to end this at like quarter after, but if there's time, you'll be able to go in afterwards, but you'll have to re-log in, of course, and in order for there to be content for you to give posts on. Very good. All right, Duncan.
Hi, Duncan Carl Smith in physics. I'm not teaching an online class, but I use Piazza and Canvas discussion. mechanisms in my regular class, so I'm interested in improving those. And as a STEM professor, just to comment, I will object to the use of the word organic, okay, because that's different than
Right. But you use both Piazza and Canvas discussions.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And feedback in one-on-one discussions through assignments, and I'm already asking the students questions. I haven't been doing that. I've been like responding, feeding a conversation as well. So I've already
Okay,
learned something.
and it's hard to keep up with that as well, and we'll get into that as well. Welcome to Eleni online, and if she wants to type something up, I'll have JT read it. JT, why are you here, or do you have any questions that we should respond to?
I'm JT, French and Italian as well, and do academic technology. I would like to know if people use discussions as a way to get the discussion started, or is it to continue the discussion from an in-person or in a face-to-face class? So is it a before or after?
Yeah, is it to kick things off or to let things continue on? Very good. And I don't have your name.
Eric Yan from Department of Nutritional Sciences.
That's
I'm
right,
particularly interested in how do you have an organic discussion and yet focus student on a learning objective.
So tied to the learning objectives without being too forced. Very good. Shoko.
My name is Shoko Miyagi, and I'm with the UW System. Here to learn. Mine is more compliance training, mandatory compliance stuff. So, is there any way to add this to what I'm
To
doing?
compliance training, which is generally individual work rather than
Correct.
social work, social learning. Great. Margaret, any questions we should address?
No, Margaret, I think you covered, having it to be more authentic, but to keep moving. Sometimes the discussions are so flat.
Yeah.
It's like, you quote the reading, you make a statement, you get your 2 points, and you
Yep, it's sort of how to not force it.
But how do you get people to really just engage in dialogue?
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah, and I'd like to give a little feedback on yours. I would agree with what you said. Do I get an extra point for?
Right. Yeah, because anytime you say, yeah, good point, I agree, that checks off the box.
I agree too.
Yeah, that's great, you're already done. Jen.
Hi, I'm Jen Russo. I'm from the UW Extended Campus. I'm a new associate instructional designer, so this is my first time working with faculty on developing their online courses. So I came here just to get a general sense of what other people are doing, and then how instructors can best manage the online discussion and be present.
All right, and the instructor presence is coming up, that's what I'm gonna write down. Just double checking, Extended Campus is all online, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Ben.
Hi, I'm Ben. I'm a grad student in genetics. I'm interested in teaching in the future, which is why I'm here. And I guess, as a recent student, I had some online discussions that have agreed with lots of the don'ts on this.
You have opinions.
Yeah. So I think I'm most interested, like he was saying, trying to get learning objectives addressed in online discussions.
Very good. Andrew?
Hello, I'm Andrew Turner. I'm here on behalf of the Learn at UW Madison team. And this assignment for prospects, if you're familiar with that. Let's see, I'm interested in learning about what other tools people use for discussions, if they use any outside of Canvas.
Outside of Canvas and Piazza, we've already mentioned. Are there others? I'd like to know that too. Very good. Jamie?
Hi, I'm Jamie. I am a PhD student in the School of Social Work, and I also teach as part of an online master's program in palliative care specifically from the University of Maryland. I guess my biggest question is, how do you effectively provide feedback in an online discussion forum, because tone is not there? So how do you gently provide feedback without offending students?
No nonverbals. How do we do that? How do we navigate? Very good. Corey?
My name is Corey Schmidt-Bauer, and I'm a new instructional designer with UA Academic Technology. It's my first week here, so I'm here. Thank you. I have a background in instructional design and with online course development and curriculum. I also have teaching experience and taught rhetoric classes face-to-face as well as online. So this is a good discussion to have about discussions. So I think a a lot of people covered good topics, but my question is how do we encourage the students to participate promptly? So basically time management. I know that's probably the biggest thing, but I mean everything's important.
Yeah, it's and we joked about you have to respond to 2 things, and of course Karen as the first one doesn't have 2 other people to respond to, so she's in there, and you know a lot of our students, they parachute in and then they just never come back unless they have to, and then I have to now. But yeah, very good. Camilla.
I have no original content. I'm Armela. Plant pathology, but I would like to comment on Harold and say I agree with him being personable and bringing the classroom feel to a discussion, and also Andrew about other tools, digital tools.
All right, very good. And Peter?
I'm Peter Van Can. I teach in the kinesiology department on neuroscience-related issues. And like the question I've been struggling with over the past couple of years is how to have team-based discussion organized so that everybody in the class can profit by them. Can profit from the knowledge of data. So the sharing between kind of like the teams and the bigger enrollment of the whole class.
Good. I like the teams instead of groups, but we understand the 2. Right, because if you have a small discussion among yourselves, it's just among yourselves. How do we get that then shared out with everyone else? Excellent. Mohammed.
Yep, my name is Mohammed Atay. I'm in the history program, I'm a PhD candidate, and I'm going to teach an online course on modern Middle East this summer. So I'm interested in using digital tools to have an effective discussion online.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll try to help.
I'm Leah Freeman. I am a librarian, so I'm just kind of here to see what's going on, especially as a lot of the classes for undergrads are moving towards the online space in the libraries. We're thinking about how we can still support those.
Okay, very good. Karen?
Hi, I'm Karen Skidmore. I'm the other person that Karen was referring to. In order to facilitate Teach Online, you have to be named Karen. But other than that, I'm just here because we just had a session on discussions and the program that we're interested in teaching online. See one of those Karens, and one of their big comments was ugh, and a lot of other negative comments. So I'd like to see how we can turn those negatives into positives, and what are some of the negative things which I'm already starting to hear that we can change those things.
All right. How to deal with the UGs.
Todd Lundberg, I work with the Collaborative for Advancing Teaching and Learning. My question is, it's related to Peter's, and it's really about team-based learning. Who's using discussion boards as a way of doing a kind of simultaneous report out? Yeah, and I'm interested not in online. I'm interested in face-to-face. Actually using discussion forums as a way of getting an electronic simultaneous report out that teams and the whole class can use and you can use in discussion.
I'm going to put it as a big topic, face-to-face versus online. And I know that that's sort of there are more specifics than that. Spoiler alert, we're not going to get to a lot of the specifics today, but we're going to hopefully, if you know of things that are being addressed here and you're like, oh, I have the answer to that, we're going to please share forward. Naomi.
I'm Naomi. I'm also with the Collaborative for Advancing Learning and Teaching. My background is in teaching writing, and so I'm interested in how other people teach students about discussions posts and effective discussion posts as a genre. It's a kind of thing you can learn. So how do we teach them to write productive online discussion posts that aren't I agree?
Yeah, very good. Writing versus discussion, they are different, right? All right, Laney.
Manageable instructor feedback on discussion posts. In the past, I've commented on student posts, but it can get unwieldy, ineffective, commenting on every single student's comments. Yeah. And she would love tips on that.
All right, so I'm going to put that under not instructor presence and workload. Let's make it just, versus. instructor workload? Because the more present you are, the more work it is, and or is it? Sandrine?
Sandrine, Department of Curriculum and Instruction. I teach in the teacher education program, and I have used Canvas discussions in several courses, some not successfully and some successfully, but I'm still, and this semester seems to be going better, so I can share some of the things I've been doing, but I'm still wondering about my role as an instructor. What is it? Should I give feedback? What kind of feedback? That's still something I'm struggling with.
All right, very good. Kenny?
Kenny, I'm a student in the kinesiology department, and a couple of topics have already come up that I'm interested in, including the instructor presence and workload. I've worked with like 100 plus, 200 plus classes in the past, and there's been some desire to get online discussions into those classes, but as the single TA for those classes, I provided a lot of pushback because, like you said, what is my role in commenting and providing feedback on those?
I usually wait till we're all done and then we start addressing things, but just show of hands, how many of you have tried to do discussions like with 100 people at a time in one group? How did that, well, all right, we're gonna talk to you later on, but let me get back over here. Jim. Oh, I'm sorry, Dan.
Hello, I'm Dan Pell. I work with John here in academic technology on the REACH program, supporting a number of large enrollment courses. And John would know that I'm very cynical about discussion boards. The last time I felt like I was
in general.
on a good one in the 90s when they were the thing, and that's part of the problem. But I'm going to stay away from my cynicism and say what I'm interested is, I know that they can be used well. I know that there have been effective uses of it. In fact, I've even felt that way sometimes. And I'm curious how people judge that effectiveness. And what are your criteria? Saying, yeah, that was a good one, that one worked, versus, wow, that sucked again.
I'm Jim Williams. I teach in computer sciences, and I've taken online courses and facilitated by others and haven't been real happy with the discussions, but I will be designing a new course this summer. One thing that intrigues me is, like, I've got 3 teenagers, and my oldest daughter, Instagram, Snapchat, she's always on her device, engaged, but yet we had to help her have a phone conversation. She didn't know how to get information and interact with somebody on the phone. And so I'm wondering if there's something here where maybe the younger generation coming along sees things differently in some way to incorporate it.
Yes, I'm gonna write that down.
My name is Kasumi Kato. I'm a graduate from UW Madison. I now teach Japanese at UW Whitewater. I'm here thanks to Lauren. I have been part of distance learning classrooms under the collaborative language programs. So I now teach Japanese in a hybrid course, and I have not done a discussion forum yet, but I have been a recipient of that, and sometimes I wonder how we can create a rapport online among students or learners, and as well as among the participants and the instructor or teacher. So I'm also saying yes to all the lists that are in here. So I'm just here to learn a lot from you all.
All right, more about the relationships in some ways. Also, Lauren gets an extra cookie for bringing a friend. All right.
I'm Lauren. I do language stuff, system-wide, blah, blah, blah. Something has hit my head from a lot of the comments so far, and that's Flipgrid. If you haven't heard of it, that's a video-based discussion board. So for those of you who are looking for something other than written, it's owned by Microsoft. My question is, I get why we say you must respond to at least 2 of your classmates, and make sure not to respond to somebody that's already been responding. I get why we do all that, but how do we get them to post initially some kind of post that engages them enough that they want to do that, and they're not paying attention to the number, but rather the quality and the interest in there.
We're looking at intrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
Awesome. Molly.
I'm Molly. I'm a postdoc in psychology and new to working at UW, so I'm kind of just learning what people are doing here. We might be moving into an online course world, so checking it all out.
All right, and Cliff.
My name's Cliff, work with Learn at UW, do a lot of support for various Canvas type products, and I'm here for the cookie, John.
Very good. I know that's on your sheet. Okay, we have, now that took 25 minutes to go around the room and do that. Colossal waste of time, or some sense of, now I understand that I'm not alone with my concerns here, new ideas here, oh, flip grids, things are starting to happen already. There's a lot of information on this sheet as far as the technical elements of it. We've got instructions on that. We're not going to talk about how to open up Canvas and how to set this button and how to create groups. There's great stuff online, self-paced video, step-by-step text-based, a lot of good stuff online. We're not going to do that. I want to get into this stuff about how do we make it organic. And we started off with, let's make this an online discussion by forcing you, and if students won't do it unless it's right. So that's why we do that, right?
And why?
Why it's right, but why? Because we need to have grades, right? That's the system that we live in. Yay, go team. How can we make it organic? Who has had an organic online discussion in or out of school? So what does it look like, and what made it organic? I see your hand raised. Yes, Karen.
I think that, first of all, not to have a prompt that's a fact-based prompt that they could look up and find an answer.
Of that.
What does the author define X as?
Okay. Because that's just.
But a better one might be, how does your author define X, and what are other people saying about X? Potentially,
something
I
and
still think
adding
that's
more
great,
to it.
but yeah. So making the prompts themselves have flexibility in response opportunities. There was something else I was going to say about that. Oh, interest-based groupings, I guess. Finding a way to put students together who share interests.
And in some ways we're talking about teams now. How do we have the different teams? So groups, how many of you have done groups online? Do you do individual short-term groups? So each week you get a new group, or do you let them develop a relationship over the first half of the semester?
Yeah.
Or the whole semester?
Partial semester.
So I've heard pros and cons to a lot of these, right? The pro for a longer term thing is you get to know each other, right? The con for all semester is, what if I don't like the people that I'm in the group with? Switching it up half and half seems to be a compromise. Short term, 1 week you're with this group, another week you're with this group. Sure, you get a lot of ideas, or do you, because you don't have that trust built yet? So you might not get any ideas, it all might stay superficial up here. Good prompts are another part. We've got some really good discussions from this article here that Morton Kurtzbachers put together, as well as some very specific cues, prompts, and there are more out there. There's a lot of resources here. Duncan.
Two thoughts, maybe suggestions, and not always applicable. And I don't do this myself, but making an authentic situation.
Yep.
Case study type of thing. You know, you're in the hospital and it's your job, but the next person, if that were the case, right? And, as opposed to, let's discuss this text. One thing that actually works as an authentic experience that I've done in STEM is read this journal article. The next person has to read one of the things that cited it or it cites, right, and post and describe. So it has a natural thread. The next person's got to do it. And then there's a product at the end, which is a bibliography, which can be their paper if they really like that subject. So there's a little bit of a structure.
So hang on with that one, because I want to focus on that. Is the discussion that you're doing? This is what I'm picking up. The discussion assignment builds on another assignment. So it becomes a scaffolded piece of a bigger assignment. And the reason then for doing it is not just for the grade or because they were assigned to do it, but because whatever they do there is going to help them with this bigger end of semester project.
That's the intent of that structure.
Yeah,
right?
that's another great way.
But in my case, it's an authentic experience, and that's really what I want. I want them to learn that skill, right? So there's something there.
And you're also having them find the research so they can choose which source they
can pick what
they need
they're
to cite
interested
from the
in.
previous one. Good. Other thoughts on that? And I want to get back to Naomi's thought on writing. So online discussion, we call them online discussions, but what are they really? They're writing, right? And writing and the voices that we use in writing are very different from the voices that we use in discussions. The grammar is different, everything's different about it. And now, how many of you have had discussions here where they are using the emojis and the short BRBs and whatever they're doing these days? Sorry to keep up as a little guy. It's part of it. Is that okay? Or do you check for grammar and make sure that it's formal Queen's English or whatever? Should you? Because is that part of an authentic discussion? Or is it just part of authentic writing? In which case, why in Canvas do we call it discussions? How many of you are familiar with the SAMR model? S-A-M-R? So SAMR, yes, stands for substitution, right? We get a new technology and we say, oh, I can do this here. We've got this online environment. Let's substitute discussions, face-to-face, nonverbals, all of these things that we have a list of, and you can add to this if you'd like. What are the differences between face-to-face versus online? There are some affordances that there are in this medium, some affordances in this medium. They're different. But what can we do to substitute, right? The A is augmentation. Oh, it seems like in the online environment, I can have them do research and add links. Well, that's going to do that. You can't do that in a face-to-face thing. I make a point and I say, oh, that's http://da-da-da-da-da.com or .scholar or whatever it is. Augmentation is the next one. The next thing we get to is the M, modification. How can we modify this? Thank you. And in that case, it becomes something sort of different, right? It's not just a discussion. What would be a good example of a discussion that is modified by being online? You've got the augmentation of links, but maybe we're not even going to have a discussion. Maybe it's just going to be a sharing of YouTube videos explaining the concept and different things. So it's not really a discussion. It's a totally different thing, modified. And then R, modify. That's all right. And then R is redefine. So we're not even going to call it an online discussions anymore. It's an online exchange. It's an online forum. They started off as forums, and somehow they turned into discussions. I don't know why that happened. I think because we're still sort of in that substitution phase. So what are some ways that you have seen discussions sort of transformed, or various elements of this?
Use things like webinars, and said you don't have to do it all text-based in an online course. You can use webinars.
Canvas, you can do synchronous face-to-face video discussions with Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, right? They can have their own whiteboards, they can draw pictures in there. That can be a synchronous discussion, synchronous at the same time, versus the asynchronous. I log in, I'm the only one there. I can't respond to anybody's posts yet because nobody's posted anything. It's kind of echo, it's not very personable in there. It's certainly not a conversation other than, if you're in the elevator and you say something and then you get off the elevator and somebody comes in and they hear you, the echoes of you. Not a discussion. What other things have you seen where, images, augmentation, right? We can add images. How about modifications? Have any of you seen a really interesting use of the Canvas discussion forum? Q&A, back and forth, ask me anything. Sarah?
Kind of like an ongoing final project page, because you can edit your post. So students will like essentially build up a forum of consecutive like blog entries, right?
Yeah.
But then they can go back and edit it over time. You can leave comments as a form of peer review or feedback.
And Piazza is a really great example of a modified or even redefined discussion forum, isn't it? How many of you have used Piazza? Nope. Yes, a couple of people. If you haven't, take a look at it. There are some really good examples of it being used. The thing about Piazza is that you can set it up as an instructor so that it's anonymous from student to student, so that students don't feel the pressure of, oh, this is a really dumb question. They can put it in anyway and say, I'm anonymous, I don't know this answer. And somebody else can come in and say, oh, I know the answer, I'm gonna build some social capital. My name's John, and I say, here's the answer. And you go, ooh, John's so smart. But you know all the time, right? Karen?
To take us back to the writing point as well, I used the Canvas forums for when I taught a CommB course, a writing intensive course. So during a face-to-face session, I had students log into Canvas and go to the forum, and the goal was for them to work on their paraphrasing abilities. So they were supposed to have read an article, and I told them they couldn't use their material. They had 5 minutes, and they all started a reply, and they were supposed to write one paragraph kind of summarizing the main idea.
Great.
And so they did that during class time and all at the same time. So they weren't able to see each other's while they were typing either. And then they posted that, and then we talked about them as a class, but they were also preserved so they could see how others had approached it and kind of still be able to use that again when they wrote their papers. And so that's
It's
kind
a
of
great
modified.
example of a modification or redefinition of that online forum, using it as sort of the muddiest point, or using it as a minute paper, or some other sort of thing where it's there, they can see each other's after they do it, so they're not doing, oh yeah, same. Everybody does an individual one, they can go back and refer to it afterwards. It's a very good example, thank you.
Can you
Yes, Shoko.
kind of, you were talking about online, like a writing and online and then the SAMR model.
The SAMR model?
Can you kind of close that loop? Like
Yes.
How did that end?
So
That's a dumb question.
it's the difference between the online versus the face-to-face. It's part of the, we're trying to force a face-to-face discussion into this online format because we're substituting. We oftentimes just get stuck on this. Oh, we're gonna have a discussion. We even call it a discussion. It should be called an online forum because the online forum lets us do these other things to it, within it. Dan?
I want to follow up on what Sarah said. I like this idea of using it as a kind of a rolling blog, and one of the reasons for that is that one of the problems with the discussion board, our learners are using digital means to communicate more than most of us ever did, but they're not using this medium because the structure of it is very old, and blogging is something people do. And there's all sorts of other varieties of engagement that people do digitally. And the more we can make this medium that we have built in look like or function like something that they're already naturally doing as part of their daily practice, the more effectively it's going to work and the more likely they are to actually reach that organic engagement. But the tool is working against that because it's so much set up around a very 90s version of post, reply, post, reply. So that idea of putting a blog out and revising it and improving it, I really like.
And it can be an online journal, which you've seen in other courses, which can be a similar thing. Lauren?
So, kind of feeding off of the last few comments, I also read through the challenge part of this page that talks about the do's and the don'ts.
Oh, yeah.
And the most common thread in here reflects back on the amount that an instructor is or isn't interacting with the discussion, whether it's physically online or bringing it up in class. And I feel like there's this fine line between getting too involved so that the students don't want to participate because they feel they're being judged, versus not involved enough, where they wonder why are you even asking us to do this because it doesn't seem like you're paying attention to what we're writing anyway. So what is that happy medium so that there is that intrinsic motivation for them to continue to work through discussion without being too intrusive?
I had an instructor who had us do the Canvas, it wasn't Canvas at the time, it was E12, it was weird, and it was forced, but it was the Foucault's panopticon thing. He said he would respond to, you know, he would look at all of them, but not respond to all of them. Now, did he look at all of them? We don't know. But every once in a while, it's not a risk that we would take, right? So it was sort of this threat of if you didn't do something well, you might get chosen that week and called out. Not the best intrinsic motivation there, but certainly a way to manage and a way to say, I value enough that I'm going to look at some of them, not none of them, and I'm going to show you that I'm going to look at some of them, but I just can't do them all. Karen and then Naomi?
So one thing I'm thinking about is, although this doesn't guarantee you've actually read it, but in the Canvas to edit things, you can do the allow liking, and one of the options is only graders can like. So perhaps that's one way to show students that you've read it but don't necessarily need to interject.
Yeah. It's almost an acknowledgement.
Right.
Sometimes in social media that like isn't that I really like it. It's just that
I saw you.
I saw it.
I see it.
And
right.
I value enough to like to like it.
Another thing I've done in the past, and I've had people vehemently disagree with this practice, but I thought it was good. At the end of every module, in a wrap-up announcement, I would highlight by name students who I thought made exceptional posts. And they might have been things like really unique ideas and really creative or interesting resources they brought in, whatever. But I would call them out by name and say, this is our star poster, or a couple of people even sometimes, for the week. And I felt like that, I guess, it both brought up that I was clearly paying attention, and I also think it kind of gave students something to work toward. I did see students kind of striving to do better as that kind of progressed. So that was another way that I was recognizing them.
And there's something about the social capital and the organic element, and part of the let's make it more like a face-to-face discussion. In a face-to-face discussion, I put your name with your face, right? Name, face, name, face, name, face. In online discussions, unless as an instructor I've said, I want you to have your profile picture up with, you know, a face that I can recognize, not you and your dog in a field 200 yards away. Or not an anime figure or Minecraft, whatever, but something with your face. And that way, when I read your post, I can be like, oh yeah, that was Charles' post. In some ways, it's to your point of, this is not an anonymous thing. I'm paying attention, and I can call you out. And whether I call you out by name or not is a choice that you can make, but somehow revisiting with the students to say, this is important enough to me that I read through it, and I looked at it, and now I'm going to respond, maybe not to everything, but to some things. And then Naomi?
Just sort of threading into that, I think that communicating to students, if you have a discussion component that primes an in-class conversation, just really clearly expressing that their thoughts on the discussion forum have actively changed the direction that you want to take as an instructor in class. It's a really effective way of saying, thanks for engaging. I wanted to really focus in on this because it's something we talked about and that was great.
I am giving you agency. You have, what's the word? You matter. Your choices matter. What you write down in the posts matter, and I'm going to respond. Thank you. All right, Molly.
Just thinking about the reacting to people. Our lab uses Slack for pretty much all conversations, and I have found that I want that for all of my online conversations, to be able to have the little emotes that are like, oh, I like that, oh, that's funny, and it engages people and creates creativity, and it might be a way to do online
It's
conversations
more of
outside
the face-to-face because you have literal faces. Hang on, Karen, and then Todd.
Yeah, well, just if you really wanna know that you're looking, that the students know that you're looking at their posts, and give them feedback in SpeedGrader. SpeedGrader makes it extremely easy for you to pull up their posts without having to dig through all of the threads and make a comment that you can have some canned ones and some, then you can personalize them and really comment on their post, what they did well or not, and even link it to a rubric if you.
So this takes some technical unpacking. You can have a discussion, but you can have an assignment that is a discussion. And if the assignment is the discussion, then you harness the ability to use SpeedGrader instead of going into the comments and having to track down somewhat onerously in Canvas who did what and which one is which. It shows up in SpeedGrader. You can have all of somebody's comments all together. So you can go like, oh, this person's making very good points or doesn't get it. Great for feedback, but great for sort of helping you track, are the students getting it, who needs help, who doesn't need help. But excellent point. SpeedGrader's speedy and we're great.
Trying to tie together Molly, Dan, and your comment, because you're helping me understand authenticity and this desire for it, which I have to admit, as someone who looks at the sociology of education, I find confusing. If we want to Slack, let's use Slack.
Yeah.
A Canvas discussion forum will never replicate that experience. When I have students in Canvas, they're getting grades. And we probably ought to own that, and if we want different kinds of interaction, we better pick a tool that lets them choose a genre that actually.
Because you could even have an I'm confused, like if that doesn't make sense to me, which just prompts people to naturally explain more or expand on something.
In some ways, is this getting back to Jim's question about, are students just changing? Are they evolving? Are their expectations different from what the tradition of formal education and formal higher education has? And do we need to adapt? How do we change that? Can we, with all the legal and privacy and bureaucracy and costs of devices and things? Like, what would it cost to get a Slack license on campus for that? That's a lot of machinery to move, a lot of policy to change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, comment on the Slack, that's not FERPA protected, I would never touch it.
Yep, for example.
Not legal,
Right.
really, to do that as a part of the course requirements. I wanted to say something, I was thinking about your daughter and the Instagram. My daughter was 30 and she showed me Instagram memes and stuff. And yeah, one thought is like, I'm making a meme, give me a meme, right? You can like it. They lap this stuff up. And yeah, it's confusing. One aspect is the anonymity. And I want to push back against everybody should. I used to think that way, but now I realize it's student right to maintain their anonymity in all things, including the classroom. You don't want some lurker coming after you in the classroom, and if you want to put up an icon or however you want to identify yourself.
The profile picture?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm very sensitive about not doing that now.
Yep.
And so I lay that out there for you to think about. But I do maybe anonymous is the way to go, and maybe that's why kids love these things, because they can be anonymous, and we should pay attention to that, right? And I was actually thinking about Instagram. It's cool, right? I can imagine it. You do a meme thing, but it's in a discussion, right? And then you have all the affordances of Slack, even better, right? Being able to like, and you got all these people you like, and you follow the things, and the whole 9 yards, right? It'd be cool. Right, so I would like that.
For some people,
Yeah.
but other people.
And I'll just say one other thing on that note.
Dystopia.
With Piazza, I do recognize it does all the statistics and contributes in what way and how many people saw that and so on. So and I display that to the students as often as I should to acknowledge there are all these lurkers. And I've always been in the mindset I've got to get the lurkers involved. But why? They're getting a lot of benefit from lurking. That's cool. Right? And if they're the shy person and don't want to jump in, so that kind of discussion, not for credit. So I'm not like, you got to give me something, right? And that's pressure, and that's really not what a real discussion is like. I mean, if you sit around with 5 people, you might be the quiet person and just kind of listen, maybe chip a little bit in, but that's like a real authentic discussion.
You're not
and a
forced
forced
to talk to
discussion
other
where
people's-
this, what you just did going around the room was, you know, I can suffer with that for your 25 minutes, but I'm not going to do that like day after day. That's just human nature. So that's what I got.
Yeah, and this is where I think that going back to the anonymity versus the reality of an educational space, to Todd's point, when you're in Canvas, you're being graded, you're being watched. It's like the classroom. It's like, okay, we can have our classrooms where we say you can wear, you know, a mask or to be culturally headgear, right? There's possibilities. Generally, we sit down next to people, we see their faces, we see their who they are, and we don't always know their names unless we force them to have that. Spaces like Piazza, I love the idea of having a conversation occur there. It can be anonymous, it can be named, and it's all about their choice.
Yeah, I find that many students will choose to identify themselves, and many of them won't.
Right.
So they have the choice, and I think that
I think
that's
that
as it should be.
choice is great, especially there. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm switching gears a little bit, but I'm
Good.
curious if anyone has tried, like letting the students in the class kind of come up with how they want to run the discussions.
Oh, yes. Sarah has.
Yeah, there's this isn't my idea or anything, but this was in a course that I was helping with, where small groups in the class of about 30 students. So there's small groups, and then each week you have a discussion leader. The discussion leader is given instructions, and also the discussion leader, it's like they get a specific grade for leading that discussion, because they also have to write up a little report that then they have to share with the whole class on what the discussion was. And it is really, really effective, I think, even in their feedback and students' feedback on it. There were a couple students who got to do it a second time, and they actually said, I am so excited to be doing this again. It was kind of surprising, but putting the student in charge of giving feedback, of encouraging their peers to participate, and then knowing that they were going to like report on it, and then I don't know, they acknowledged each other a lot more, and it was very effective.
Imagine if that were standard practice from day one of your first year in college. By the time you were a junior or senior, you would have so much empathy for instructors on how to do discussions. The tones, issues of tone would have been figured out in some ways probably, or at least addressed, or at least more empathy about that. The idea that, Peter, your question about how do we respond, how do we get the teams to respond with everyone else? That report back at the end could be something that was posted in a full group discussion.
So the final report was delivered to the professor. Then the professor would just copy paste like a bunch of reports into an HTML page on Canvas. And then students would go back there, and it's like a compilation of notes. It's sharing all the group's work, and the professor didn't have to give any feedback particular to the discussion,
Back to the workload idea.
but did grade each group leader once a week.
So it gives the students agency. It tells them that they're in charge in some ways. It distributes the work to the students, and we all know that whoever does the work does the learning. So that's great. It addresses a lot of things. Beautiful idea. Sandri?
Yes, a similar thing. So based on student feedback after using Canvas discussion, where really the main thing for them was what was the point of that. There was such a disconnect between what was done on Canvas and then the class. So now it's the second time that I do that. They meet in their group, in their Canvas discussion group, and they come up with either a question that they still have after their discussion, or an issue that they want to raise. And that's kind of the guiding, that guides the class discussion. So there is continuity, there is also why do we do that, and that works quite well too.
Yeah, it's whatever you raise, we'll talk about.
Yeah.
It's responsive, you matter, and it gives the students the agency and control. Is that your hand up or? Nope. Okay. All right. So we talked a little bit about, let's talk a little bit, well, tone. We don't have have the emojis to be able to give the same amount of tone. There's also lack of inflection, there's lack of all kinds of stuff. Other ways that people are addressing that, Karen?
So one, you can use emojis in Canvas.
Yeah, I guess.
They're not like linked to, in a response, you could input emojis in your responses.
All right, you can go online, copy whatever, and then
Well,
paste it back. Not
on
paste,
a
but-
normal computer, if you hit the little Windows button and period, an emojis window pops up that you can select from, right in line. I can't speak to Macs, so. In a normal computer, right. But otherwise, because I'm pretty sure this was in reference to instructor feedback.
That was, yes.
So using audio comments in the speed grader
Yeah.
is one of the best discoveries I ever made, and I've had numerous students tell me how much they loved having the audio comments.
How many of you have tried audio comments in SpeedGrader? They're great, and they don't have to be done in SpeedGrader necessarily, because you can do it on your phone and then just upload wherever that sound file is. It sets the pace for the students, so anything you type, they can like scan through at whatever speed or ignore altogether. But if they have to listen to your voice at the pace that you're doing it, it sort of moves in an analog version of it, even though it's digital audio. But they also get they get the inflection, they get that you're not yelling at them, that you're reassuring in tone. It's a very fantastic way to give feedback. Naomi, and then Leah.
I put in a plug for giving an opt-out just for students with auditory processing disorders, but I was really impressed when I asked my students kind of whether they wanted like a screencast or another kind of written comment or like what kinds of feedback they wanted. They responded with the information I needed at exactly when I needed it, so it was useful.
Really good observation. Also, you ask them and then you responded. Yeah, ask the students. Good, Leah.
I'm kind of thinking that moderating other students' tones might be more of an issue because, like, as the instructor, you'd have the semester to like build the rapport with the students, but like if the other students aren't engaging with each other, it's just an anonymous, like faceless person saying something that might be misinterpreted.
And that's again why I really want them to have that picture there, and also why if you're going to do groups, and you should. I was about to say you should never do a large class, but I think that there are times when you can do a whole group discussion. I don't have any really good examples at the time, but I'm sure that they exist. But in the small groups, if you have them evolve and iterate, the first discussion that you have between 5 or 6 people, probably going to be stilted, superficial, not so great. The second week, better. The third week, better. The fourth week, better. By the middle of the semester, they should know each other pretty well, trust each other, or at least trust that other people will react in a certain way, or just sort of knowing and expecting things. But you're right, that anonymous, the most toxic discussions on campus or forums on campus are when it's anonymous, fully anonymous. Piazza, again, that anonymity, and you need to tell this to your students if you use it, is for other students. It is not for you. You can always see who they are, and if they're acting like jerks, you need to intervene. You're early on. I saw a hand over there.
So there's a study that we have in the activity sheet. It's on the second page. It's case 2012. This professor did a parallel study of audio discussion boards with text-based discussion boards in a graduate level course. And so students could do whichever one they wanted to give comments or their post in sort of as an audio file or as written. And it was a pretty fascinating comparison about tone, which we've talked about, tone, intonation, and she did it over the course of an entire semester. And her conclusions talk a lot about the community building within the course as a result of that. But the comparison between which one's better is still, the jury's out on that.
And it's contextual, right, for that class versus another class, but something to try in part of your experiment of moving things forward and helping these technologies become better and not giving up on them altogether, because sometimes we have to use the tools that we are given. We have just 2 minutes left. Are there things that we have not talked about here, or new things that came up that you want us to build on the crowd knowledge for? Karen?
I think think a general comment is, one, don't feel like your discussions have to be the same. And I'm speaking to a fully online class, I guess, in most of my comments, so just as an awareness point. They don't all have to be the same. They can differ over the course. You know, I know I saw you have David Dwyer linked somewhere in here, right there actually. And his discussions, they start off with a bit more guidance, more scaffolding, and they get a bit more, you take it on your own as he goes on. So that's one thing, that they don't all have to be the same, and that I think addresses a lot of some of the issues anyway that I've heard. Also, dang it, what's my other think about what the purpose of your discussion is. Oftentimes the discussion is meant to engage a learning process, not to be a summative assessment.
Yes.
So that's really important too, right? And so when you really have clarity on what the purpose, the function that your discussion is serving for your course overall, really helps you to design it better, I think.
And share that purpose with your students.
Yes.
So they know why you're doing this as well. And that gets rid of a lot of the ugh, a lot of the why am I doing this? This is busy work, this feels stupid. The biggest frustration, and I just talked to 100 graduating seniors about technology practices and learning yesterday and the day before. The biggest thing that came out was they're frustrated with technology when it doesn't work, or they don't know how to use it, or they don't know what the instructor wants them to do. It's this, I don't understand. The content, I'm happy to do what you want me to do, but I don't understand how to do it or what you want me to do, and that's frustrating. And then that's when they look at what other people have done and said, same, I agree, because it's a defense mechanism. We're out of time. Thank you for a conversation. Really appreciate it. Again, there's a lot more about this topic that we can't get to. If you would, on your way out, just hit a couple of boxes and on the reflection sheet, and if you're willing to stick around for a little bit longer, I'm presenting on one active teaching lab is at